Please welcome back Director Will Parrinello and our two very special guests, Francisco Pineda and Dr. Navarro from El Salvador.
Thank you.
Thank you, Will.
And thank you, Joanna, for having us for the screening. And to Francisco Pineda, please, a round of applause, everyone. And Dr. Navarro, who was a field producer on the film with us and important consultant. And our friends Marty Gonzalez and Sue Gonzalez, who are going to help translate. If you guys want to just come up, we can share mics.
So you said this took you 12 years? You've been
12 years. It'll be 13 years old on December 20th.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that journey and why it took so long and you know, kind of just the ups and downs of how you've been following the stories?
Yeah, you know, on some level, you know, we say it took exactly as long as it needed to take. Francisco's story took 9 years to completely unfold. And we initially thought we were telling a story only about Francisco. But the political climate had changed to the point that people were less interested in El Salvador after 7 years on the project, even though I said I'm talking about 9. And we were having a difficult time funding the film. We were literally running on fumes, financial fumes. It's really difficult to fund a documentary like this, right? It's not a commercial project, and people don't understand what you're doing. So you have to put it together the best of your ability. We scraped. And so at that point, my filmmaking partner, Johnny Antonelli, said, listen, why don't you put 2 other stories together with it? Show these patterns of exploitation and impunity that are happening in Central and South America that are also a harbinger of what are happening globally, Africa, Asia, the Pacific Islands, and even in North America. So that's why it took so long. We then had to add those 2 other stories to it. We had a 3rd story. Alberto Curamil was not initially in the film, a woman named Maxima Acuna from Peru. And we ended up having to take her out of the film because it was revealed that someone else had made a film about her, and it was released before our film. We were about to get completion funding from Paul Allen, one of the co-founders of Microsoft, and the executive producer for his company called me from Hot Docs, an important film festival in Toronto, saying, sit down, Will. And I thought she was about to say, we're going to give you all the money to finish the film, not just money for the proof of concept edit. And she said, I just saw this film, Maxima. And I literally started crying. And we made the tough decision to take Maxima out, put Alberto in. That added 3 more years. So, you know, it's like, if you know of Sisyphus, the myth of Sisyphus, pushing a boulder up the mountain, and you're almost to the top of the mountain, and then you get pushed back down, and you have to just keep pushing. So that's what we did.
That's filmmaking in a nutshell, right?
It is, yeah, exactly.
So for Francisco, I'd love to know the experience for you of being part of this project and the impact that you think it made on your work and your cause, and how it's sort of evolved over time to be an integral part of what you are doing.
Hola, es un gusto estar con ustedes. Agradecemos a todos, a Willy y a todas las personas, instituciones que han hecho posible llegar hasta este día.
Hello, everyone. It's wonderful to be here with you, and I want to tell you how grateful we are to Will and all of the people who made this film possible.
Sabemos de que las tormentas y los huracanes inician moviendo una hoja de un árbol.
We know that in order to start a movement, it starts with a leaf falling from a tree.
Así empezó la lucha de nosotros en nuestro país.
And that's how the fight began in our country.
Agradezco la presencia de todos y todas las que están ahora este día.
I'm very grateful to all of you for making time to come and watch this film today and be with us.
En realidad, todo esto se logró incluso, si ustedes pueden ver en la filmación, las muertes de muchos compañeros y compañeras.
Unfortunately, as you were able to see in the film, our struggle took the lives of many of our colleagues throughout the making of the film.
En nuestros países no es la diferencia cómo eran antes y cómo estamos ahora.
In our country, you can see the difference of the way we were before and the way we are now.
En realidad, seguimos preocupados, seguimos amenazados, porque allí tenemos el oro y hay empresas muy interesadas en quererlo sacar.
In reality, we remain worried about our situation because there are still companies out there that want the gold and want to take the gold from our country.
Cada dirigente de Estado tiene su forma de pensar y cómo querer hacer las cosas.
Everyone in our representatives have their own ideas of how they want to proceed and how they want to do things.
A través de la lucha de los pueblos, se logró que se aprobara una ley que dice que en El Salvador se prohíbe la explotación minera metálica.
After our long struggle, there was a law that was passed in El Salvador that prohibited the use or the taking away of gold and minerals from our country.
Lastimosamente, que cuando estos gobiernos llegan con todo su gabinete, pues ellos piensan cómo quieren desarrollar el país sin tomar en cuenta cómo nosotros en las comunidades queremos vivir.
The current government has their ideas of how they want to share the wealth of their country with others without asking the people who live in the towns and villages that you've just seen in the film.
Lastimosamente, hay un sector que cree que el desarrollo y la forma de vivir es acumulando riquezas.
I'm sorry, unfortunately, there are people in our country who believe that the best way to share the riches of our country is to gather wealth for themselves.
Nosotros en las comunidades pensamos que lo que necesitamos un desarrollo económico que sea autosostenible.
What we believe is that most people in our country want to have a method that shares the wealth in a way that is sustainable to the ecology of our country.
Manteniendo una tierra productiva, manteniendo un aire que no nos contamine, que no nos afecte, y manteniendo una cantidad y calidad de agua para todos.
Means to us maintaining the earth in a way that is not polluted, the air that is clean that we can breathe, and the water that is safe for us to drink.
Lastimosamente, otros piensan de que no es así, que es teniendo más lingotes de oro en los bancos.
Unfortunately, there are those who believe that that is not the way to live. They believe that the best way to live is to have more gold in our banks.
Respeto la forma de pensar de cada quien y respeto cómo queremos cada quien vivir. Pero creo que no es justo que queramos vivir bien a costa de la vida de mucha gente.
I respect different views. I respect different thoughts. But I don't think that there is any justice in the way of living that takes away the accessibility of the land, the water, and the air from us.
Mis papás, mis antepasados soñaron, y yo sigo soñando, que tenemos la responsabilidad de dejarles a las presentes y a las futuras generaciones. Cada día que me levanto, pienso en mis hijos y en mis nietos, que tengo la responsabilidad de dejarles un planeta mejor.
Every day I wake up and I think about my children and my grandchildren and the responsibility that I have to leave them with a planet that is better than the way we left it.
en los medios dicen de que El Salvador es un país de los más seguros.
They say that El Salvador is one of the safest countries.
Yo que vivo en una zona rural, en un pueblo a más de 100 kilómetros de distancia de la capital, les decimos que no es así.
I can tell you, as someone who lives in a village that is 100 miles from the capital city, that life is not that way.
Nos preocupa que la seguridad se crea que es a base de represión y de ver más autoridades. ¿Cuántos soldados, cuántos policías voy a necesitar yo para sentirme seguro? Creo que esa seguridad no es una seguridad permanente para nosotros. Es a base de la educación, de la sensibilización, de que tengamos armonía todos.
I often wonder, to feel secure, how many soldiers and how many police do I need around me? That is, to me, that is not a way to live, and I don't feel that that is a way that people in my village want to live.
They want a secure living is through good education and for their children and for their population.
No sé si yo estoy equivocado. La verdad es que nosotros hay veces que nos metemos en problemas porque lo que decimos es lo que pensamos, es lo que sentimos y lo decimos con el corazón. Y eso nos trae problemas siempre con los que tienen el poder.
We speak truthfully and we speak from the heart, and that's what gets us into trouble with those who have power.
Pero en realidad nosotros lo que queremos es tener tierra, agua y aire para ir produciendo lo que nosotros comemos. No estamos en contra de un desarrollo económico y social. Sí queremos que nuestros hijos tengan ese espacio, pero un desarrollo económico y social que sea autosostenible y que nos asegure que haya vida para hoy, mañana y todo el tiempo.
What we want is to have clean air, water, and land that allows us to continue to farm and continues to allow us to feed our families.
¿Por qué digo que estamos amenazados con la minería? Ahorita en la zona donde yo vivo, donde antes también estuvieron las empresas mineras, ya llegó otra empresa y compró el terreno. Libre de eso, anda una empresa de Perú junto con unos de China, visitando las comunidades y ya dando regalías.
What has us worried now is that there are other companies that are interested in the property where the mine was, where they were mining. Even though the original company has moved out, there are now companies from Peru and from China that are looking to move back in, and they are bribing the people in surrounding villages with gifts in order to make their movement easier.
El gobierno ha asignado un fondo para que revisen la ley donde se prohibió la minería. ¿Cuál será el interés al querer revisar esa ley?
Now there's discussion in the government to repeal the law that was passed that outlaws mining in El Salvador. I'm wondering what is causing that change in our government.
Una empresa con experiencia en la explotación minera, en hacer inversiones, nunca va a ir a hacer una inversión, a andar alquilando terrenos a grandes precios, si no ya hay una plática con algunos funcionarios del Estado y le han dado esperanza.
A company isn't just going to come in and start digging to develop a mine and to get minerals out of the ground without first talking to representatives of the government.
Lastimosamente, en nuestro país, el Congreso cambia leyes como cuando nosotros nos cambiamos ropa.
Unfortunately, what's happening in our government is they're changing the laws as often as we change our clothes.
Solo llegan las leyes, no las discuten y las aprueban.
All of a sudden, the laws appear and are approved, and nobody discusses them.
Eso nos preocupa, que si hay una propuesta de alguien con mucho poder y dicen hay que reformar la ley, que aquí dice no hay explotación minera y ahora sí se permite.
What has us worried is that someone who has a lot of power and who has a lot of money will come in and say, this law needs to be changed, and all of a sudden it will be changed,
Won't harm anyone.
and that it won't harm anyone.
El ejemplo ahora, 19 veces, tenemos 19 meses, ahora aprueban nuevamente otro mes de estado de inserción. Cuando hablábamos de estado de inserción es que dicen, vos no tenés derecho a nada.
In the past 19 months,
Yeah, I'm not sure what the next one was.
yeah,
Maybe you can help these guys with that translation.
Yeah, the government declared a state of exception 19 months ago. That's something for 30 days to be valid. That means they can enter your house quickly with no judge ruling. They can look at whatever you're talking to somebody else, and this kind of things. You lose some rights, and that is for 30 days to be valid. What has happened is that they have done it again and again 19 times. So we have been 19 months in that situation.
Thank you.
Eso nos preocupa y así estamos viviendo. Estamos viviendo donde tengo que pedir permiso hasta para respirar.
that has us worried, obviously, and that's how we're living. We are worried about now having to ask for permission to breathe.
Nos preocupa que vayamos a llegar al mismo camino que va a Nicaragua.
We are worried that we are heading down the same path that Nicaragua has gone.
Si algunos no saben cómo va Nicaragua, pues es bueno que hoy con las redes sociales podemos saber cuál es el proceso que ha llevado.
In case you aren't clear of where Nicaragua has gone, we now have a lot of different options that you can read to see where that country has gone.
En realidad lo que estoy diciendo no es para favorecer a ningún partido político, solo simplemente queremos una mejor calidad de vida y que sea autosostenible. Se lo repito nuevamente.
I'm telling you this, that I also do not favor any one political party over the other. I'm telling you this just because we want you to know that we want an environment that we can live in and that is sustainable.
Bueno, discúlpenme, me amplié, puede ser que tengan algunas otras preguntas, pero la verdad hay tanto que hablar de lo que hemos vivido y de lo que estamos viviendo.
I'm sorry that I've gone on so long, but this is very important to me, and I want to make sure that you understand what our situation is. If there are other questions, I'm happy to address those, but I thought this was important for me to talk about.
¿Pueden hacer alguna otra pregunta?
Do you guys have some questions?
May I pose a question?
You
Is that
may.
okay?
Absolutely.
Francisco, given the kind of exploitation that we see in all three of the stories in the film around resources and impunity and the violence that's there, knowing that in America, when people from the South come north, they're demonized. The other. They're coming to take jobs from Americans. And yet,
Los americanos vean que ellos amenazan, vengan a quitar el empleo de los americanos y sufren nosotros.
so if you can't live your life, what are you to do? And so how would you address an American audience that looks at people coming from the global South to North America as the demons, if you will?
¿Qué quiere decir a los que piensan que los inmigrantes que vienen de otras partes, que ellos están quitando trabajo de americanos. ¿Qué quiere decir usted a esta persona que tiene ese punto de vista?
Bueno, en realidad me pongo de ejemplo. ¿Por qué voy a querer dejar a mi esposa, mis hijos, mi familia, mi tierra, si yo estoy bien?
Let me give you myself as an example. Why would I want to leave my country, my wife, my children, if everything was okay where I live?
Todos buscamos un lugar donde queremos tener una mejor vida.
All of us are looking for a space, a place where we can have a better life.
Discúlpenme, pero en realidad todo aquel que ha venido a Estados Unidos emigrante no es culpa de él.
Excuse me, but all of the people who have come to the United States as immigrants, it's not their fault.
Y lo que están viniendo, que incluso está incrementando mucho más de todos los países latinoamericanos. Ejemplo, El Salvador. Ahorita ha crecido más la emigración.
This is not only happening in the United States, but throughout Latin America, there is an increase of immigrants. In my country of El Salvador, we have had a growth in the population of immigrants.
No es responsabilidad, ni es que queramos, es responsabilidad de los que llegan a dirigir nuestros países, nuestros estados, bueno, los presidentes diríamos, por sus políticas, y que nosotros por sobrevivir, pues buscamos. Es cierto, muchos de aquí de Estados Unidos o de otros estados, de otros países, dirían, no, si es que miren, El Salvador está lejos y es un chiquito y ya está, ¿para qué nos vamos a meter en los problemas que ellos tienen? Que nos ayude Ricardo.
Sí. Yeah. Well, it's really not our responsibility as such, but it's the responsibility of the state, of our state, that they're generating policies that are making people live.
Pero vivimos lejos, pero ¿qué va a pasar si cada conflicto que hay en otro país tratamos de emigrar a Estados Unidos y venimos a incomodar a los que ya están acá? Pero no es que queramos, pero eso siempre han sido los efectos o son los resultados de todo ese daño que hacen en los demás países.
A lot of what's causing the immigration issue in the United States are the wars and difficulties in other countries in Latin America. And that is what's been driving the immigration issue here in the United States.
Hoy que me hacen esa pregunta, me recuerdo una discusión que tuve con el presidente de la empresa Pacific Rim.
The question that you just asked me reminds me of a discussion I had with the president of the Pacific Rim.
Ellos son de Canadá.
They're from Canada.
Y me dijeron que por qué no dejábamos, que si nosotros no podíamos sacar el oro, que por qué ellos no lo sacaban y que los dejáramos, pues. Y le dije yo te dejo, cambiemos, yo me voy para Canadá donde vos vivís y venite a vivir aquí porque vos querés el oro. No quiso.
When we were talking, they were wondering why they didn't allow the gold to be mined in Canada, and Francisco said, well, if you look at it that way, why don't you move to my country and I'll move to Canada? And he said they didn't want to.
Thank you. We have another screening coming in here right now. So thank you so much for the film. Thank you for your incredible work, both of you. Thank you for your translation assistance. Thank you guys for being here. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us.
And if you want, I mean, we can, take this out to the lobby as well if you guys have any additional questions or just wanted to say anything directly. Yeah. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having us.